The 10 children who were removed from a home. The Solano County District Attorney's Office leveled the additional allegations of abuse in a motion to increase the bail of Ina Rogers, the children's 31-year-old mother, who is charged with 9 counts of felony child abuse. She did not enter a plea Wednesday and was held in lieu of 495,000 uh, bail by Judge William J. Pendergast in Solano County Superior Court. It is unclear whether Rogers was immediately put in custody. Let me say hello to O'Donohue. Investigators say the children were tortured, burned, beaten, and shot with a pellet gun while living amid squalor and abuse, all of which allegedly occurred in a bright 4-bedroom house that looks from the outside as well kept as the rest of the houses on a Northern California cul-de-sac. Some neighbors of Ina Rogers and Jonathan Allen said they had no idea the couple had so many children. The home was littered with urine, human and animal feces, garbage, and rotten food, police said, and heaps of debris blocked off parts of the house. Still, Rogers, while she was out on bail for her initial charges of child neglect earlier this week, gave reporters an open house tour of what she insisted was a living, if unconventional home. A loving, if unconventional home, rather. My husband is an amazing person, she said. I am an amazing mother. AP reported the house still looked squalid amid the cream-colored, hedge-lined exterior. Animal droppings littered the bathroom, and scuff marks still covered some walls. Allen, the 29-year-old father of 8 of the children, pleaded not guilty Monday to charges of felony torture and abuse. He was ordered held in lieu of about $5 million bail. Police began investigating the family after their 12-year-old boy was reported missing at the end of March. Rogers later told reporters that the boy had left home angry because she had taken his computer tablet away. The boy was eventually found sleeping under a bush in a neighbor's yard, police said. What officers say when they returned him to his home on March 31st caused authorities to seize the children and launch a criminal investigation. Pictures obtained by ABC affiliate KGO shows furniture, trash, and toys scattered at every angle as if a storm had torn through the house. A bathroom was covered wall to wall in animal droppings. Rogers' explanation of the unsanitary conditions were that she had torn the house apart looking for the 12-year-old child. When she was later asked why all 10 children slept in a single room while the other bedrooms were used as the parents' quarters, a meditation room, and a playroom, Rogers replied the children liked it that way. Rogers was arrested on March 31st, the same night her son returned to her and booked into Solano County Jail for alleged child neglect. She was released on bail in early April. All her children were then taken into protective custody by Solano County Child Welfare Services and placed in the care of other family members with whom they remain. So I'm gonna stop reading that right there. So someone came in here, they came out, another person just left. If O'Donohue is still in there, I appreciate that. I was trying to start this with reading that because oftentimes I'll just start by talking about the story. But when you go and read the actual parts of those articles, they tell you things that aren't typically laid out in television coverage. Um, Case in point, I had no idea that the male, the father in this situation, was not the parent of every child. So that already brings into question what happened to the dads of the other. I think it was 2 or 3 kids that she had with other men. That by itself is suspect. But there's just so much to go into. I'm trying to figure out where to begin. Um, Starting with the living conditions. Now, if any of you have seen the television coverage of this, you've seen her walk around with her hair done, um, and obviously the bedrooms for the adults look well kept. And you say to yourself, how do you allow your children to be effectively reduced to animals in your own home? Because you have, again, the adult quarters that were well kept. That sounds like a house from, yeah, exactly. I agree. No, but here's the thing. She explains that supposedly the house became that way only after this kid disappeared after she took his tablet away from him. So there's always some little coincidental. Think about this, O'Donohue. I'm supposed to believe that these 10 children that were just living together in this one room weren't causing a mess, none of them over the age of 12, but that she caused all of this mess because she was so worried and concerned and looking for her child. We're supposed to believe that. And I guess what is the most um, disturbing detail of this is that when I've sat here and talked about people and their ability to get things that they don't deserve. You know, we've had stories of mothers doing things to their children. The one mom that had her child that was I think a year old smoking pot on Facebook, and you know what I've tried to really hammer home is that these stories bother me not just because of the acts that are done, which are violations of human rights, but the fact that the people who are in these circumstances, these adults that are described in these stories, genuinely seem as if they didn't want children. But when you see them having one, and in this case 10, you ask yourself, you know, what causes this person to go unregulated in today's society and be able to get away with doing that to not one, not two, not three, not four, but enough children to compose two full basketball teams for at least a single game. Just this large group, this large family where everybody's being abused by the two heads of the house who make a mockery of the term parent. And then as I sat here and I was watching one of her interviews, they have the father with this tattoo under his eye. And look, I don't have this discontent with people who decide to get piercings, but most of us are savvy enough to get them in places that we can cover up to where they wouldn't readily be seen. I think you guys can understand where I'm coming from with that. There was a story a couple of years ago about someone that got a tattoo of Drake on their head or their face or something, and I remember, that was the argument that was made there that he having a tattoo in and of itself is not necessarily an awful thing. It's where you put it. Yeah, I agree, O'Donohue, but it's the fact that he thought that was cool. And you gotta remember, this is someone who in 11 years is going to be middle aged, getting a tattoo of a I think it was a half circle under his eye, and then have his wife saying, "Oh, he's such a good guy. He's not like da, da, da. He's so, the whole I love bad boy thing." But I can't even say this is. It's really interesting how she comes out on these. I'm telling you, this case is a really good example of how screwed up these households are. Um, she comes out, and if you watch any of her interviews, she seems, seemingly well spoken and kind of reserved and not really out of her mind. And then you look in her house and you go, well, something is amiss, like cleanliness. Okay, VVS says this proves your point. You don't need to fulfill all these high standards to get a one. Yeah, I'm supposed to. VVS, remember the comment that guy left where he said something something. You don't have a bank account. I'm supposed to believe that these two people not only had bank accounts but allowed themselves, with all their supposed wealth, to live in a house that literally had one room covered in feces of animals, and had crap of both their children and animals just splattered on top of each other. I'm telling you, man, I get so sick hearing it because it's twofold. It's first of all, it's the thing of you have these guys that wouldn't do this who aren't able to get in these kind of family type scenarios. You and I and everybody else in here probably wouldn't go and allow ourselves to have our house look like something out of hoarders, but they will get mad at you for mentioning this and for being upset with it in the context of if you were in the same scenario, you would do better, but you're not given the chances. When you see people who are given that opportunity, squandering it by ruining the lives of multiple children that they've had with this woman, you get frustrated, but you also know that this is confirmation of all the stuff you have read online about what you have to be, what you have to do, being a load of trash. It's hogwash. And it's these tales that do it, that prove it. Did they have pets, or was the fecal matter from mice? Again, this article said it was animals. I don't think they mentioned what type of animal it was. Either way, I know they said it was both the feces of animals and they're children. So both humans and animals. If that's the briefest of answers. So I want to clarify that as well. And by the way, if it's not their pets, that means that they had an infestation where basically every rodent from across the street could come in there and just trash it even further. But the part of this I haven't even gotten onto was the shot with crossbows, the waterboarding, the scalding with hot water. These are good parents. These are the people we allow to be parents. A while ago when we did the religious stream, if you guys recall, I advocated that people should have a test done, to become a parent. Because look, anyone can just go and have sex, but when you bring other people's lives into it, you are responsible for the lives that you create. I think most of us would agree with that. So when I had people kind of reacting, I don't think we should have any rules and regulations on that. I kind of said to myself, "Are you kidding me? You have stories like this. We have another story that I'm planning on either covering later on today or maybe tomorrow, of a woman who stabbed her daughter 70 times." Yeah, I'm glad you agree, Mad Down, but I'm saying that it surprised me that people are readily aware of these tales and these stories, and they act like it doesn't matter. It's okay. This is just one in few, but one in few is too many. We can point to many, just loads and loads of stories of different types of abuse. Let's not forget the Facebook Live video of that woman allowing her toddler daughter to perform fellatio on that grown man, that 40-something-year-old man. These are the people that, by virtue of being seen as sexually attractive to somebody that lives in close proximity, are allowed to ruin the lives that they create. And I understand when you hear these stories on my part, it does seem like it's a regurgitation at one point or another. But I just want it to be understood. There are just so many strange parts to this story. I remember that suffocated her nephew by sitting on her, uh, sitting on him. I think you mean, yeah. I'm that again. There's a whole bunch of these tales, and people don't want to recognize it. They don't want to accept the fact that whether they like it or not, people who have been in positions of power, whether they're a parent, whether they're a worker at some place, as we saw with that one woman that was hanging up, as the 911 operator talking about, no one has time for your distress or whatever. If you remember that story, they will take that power, that position of trust, and they'll violate it. And when they violate it, there's this refusal to acknowledge the wrongdoing. This woman is literally sitting outside in front of a patio with reporters swarming all around her, and on a separate screen, it was showing the insides of this filthy house, and she's saying, "Oh, it's not what you think." How is it not what we think? I mean, they get to a point where when they live in that fantasy of getting away with doing something evil, they can't accept that it's over. So they have to try, and even with the evidence, sit it literally as she was being interviewed on or they were playing footage of her interview on television yesterday. They had a side a set, those split screens where one side it's the interview, one side it's the inside of the house. And I'm sitting here and I'm saying to myself, the evidence is literally beside her in this broadcast while she's saying that no, this isn't what you think. And look, even if you were to say, "Oh, it's just a house, what's the big deal?" Remember, it's been proven that is the feces of humans. So someone remember these bathrooms are not. It's not the 1860s. You can actually go into a bathroom with relative ease. Most of these houses have one. So maybe they might have had some regulation on when you could and couldn't, do a number one or two. The scandals are a good example of people using their power to abuse children. I remember that. Yeah, O'Donohue. They see again. Anytime you put people in positions of strength, they have this tendency to ignore the fact that you've entrusted them with something, and they choose to ignore the responsibilities that come with that power. It's a lot easier to destroy than build, as I said a while back, and actually sitting down with your children, just to close this out, and making sure they're taken care of, they're well fed, they're well spoken, educated, whatever, is hard. But living in a house filled with feces, uh, children smushed up each other in one room like Siamese twins is not. In the end, if they lose their children, I won't feel any level of sympathy for them because you don't get to ruin that many lives and face no repercussions. Well, you do actually. I take that back, but 'cause as we've seen in a couple of cases. I think I mentioned before how you have the single mother epidemic, but if these are the fathers, I don't think they're any better off. Are they going in the well? They're currently in the custody of other relatives, so we don't know for sure yet. I hope they don't go back to them. If they do, it will be one of the greatest miscarriages of justice in the legal system of California, at least in maybe the last 40 or 50 years. Like right up there with the OJ case and right up there with maybe, uh, yeah, it's that one that comes to mind, but it really will be getting away with, um, you know, ruining lives. I swear, I feel like a broken record whenever I go into these stories because it usually amounts to me saying what the person did, condemning the person, talk about if I were in the same position I'd do better. Because it's not hard. Here's the thing, even if you say, oh, it's 10 children, you can't give everybody attention, then don't have 10. Just life is not people try to make this excuse that living is a very difficult thing and it can be, but when it comes to opening your legs and spewing out all of these different children that you're later on going to abuse. You don't have to do that. It's called protection. It's called uh, drug and economic issue. I don't know what man down is saying or what he means by that. It doesn't take much to do better. It really doesn't, man. We've seen, a majority of people still are currently just across the U.S. like in general are not in this circumstance. So we know it's doable. If you have 10 children, then you better have a good idea how to raise them. Yeah, they're just well. Yeah, I agree, and it's sad because it feels like every time I see one of these stories where there's children being abused, it's in some large household where, if it's not all of them, it's a couple of them, and then they go say, oh well, look at how these ones turned out. So all of it is very sickening, and I get most disturbed by people trying to make excuses for this behavior, going, oh no, she was, uh, having to take care of all the kids by herself. I don't get this idea of where we have to make anyone seem okay. If you have, you better be, uh, yeah. Well, even then, I mean, you can still raise children to not be deviants or treat them awfully if if you're not rich. Now, I wouldn't have 10 if I weren't rich, but I'm saying that you get the idea that it's not hard to, like, for example, this guy's going to jail. He's in handcuffs, the father. He's the father of 8 of these children. So that means 8 people in another 10 to 20 years when they're adults are going to walk around and go, hey, remember when I was a little boy or a girl and my father was sent to jail for letting me and my siblings live in a squished up uh, room while him and my mother walked around and were able to do whatever they wanted, including ignore the fact that the bathroom was decked in animal feces. High school, and there was plenty of middle class, but yeah, look, what I'm trying to say is that it's not hard to treat people right. Um, and oftentimes when we talk about parents and their children, you think they have special bonds, which would make it easier for some. Like I'll never understand how a mother can allow her children to live in that way after just because I always think when you're a parent, especially the mother, you say to yourself, this came out of me. This is someone I made. This is someone that I've known for as long as they've been alive, and just to completely have no sense of empathy to where you want to do anything for them after that is mind blowing. Me either. I only have, and even that's a huge task, but everyone should. Look, I will. The number should only accompany how much effort you're willing to give. If you're willing to, be there for 5 or 6 people, then you can have the 5 or 6. If you're willing to be able to take care of 7 or 8, have the 7 or 8. It's the fact that these people really can't even take care of themselves, given the way their house looked. Go look at the pictures. I can't show them for copyright reasons, but go look at the footage of the insides of these homes. It's gross. Yeah, I'll be honest. I don't even know if I ever even want. Okay. BBS says he saw them. It's ridiculous. No, it's well again. So the core points of this story, I want you to take away from the perspective of the like me disillusioned male is that people are going to keep telling you, as you saw, and I know VVS remembers this, that user that was writing the paragraphs talking about work on yourself, 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 work on yourself. So do yourself a favor, VVS, anybody else in here, ignore it. Because the truth of the matter is, most of us, if we were in this scenario, whether we were the father or the mother, would not allow our children to not only live in a room that's too small for 10 people, but also have our house decked out in feces. But just recognize that you don't have to, that there is a desire among a chunk of women in the current era who, unfortunately have the ability to reproduce, to get with seemingly the worst men on planet Earth. Um, and while they're doing this and you're getting frustrated, you're going to have people who are going to write these comments about, oh, you need to do this, you need to do that. And there's a good Benjamin Franklin quote: "Believe none of what you hear and only half of what you see." So they can keep telling you and having you hear their claim about, oh, if you just do this, do that, and the other thing. But when you see stories like this with males and women that didn't have to do a single thing to get the other person other than acknowledge that they were pretty